Welcome to the Menopause Coach Podcast with me, your host as always, and joined by a very special guest today. I am super excited that we're getting to have this conversation today. It's a very important conversation around food freedom, body image, and our relationship with food. I know so many of you will have read the title for this one and maybe felt a little bit triggered or a little bit resistant, but also that deep inner feeling of, I need to listen to this. I'm joined today by Elle Mace, a specialist in food freedom and body image. She helps people all over challenge diet culture, understand disordered eating behaviours, and build a very healthy or healthier lifestyle around it, with more compassionate relationships with their food and bodies. Now, we're going to explore where our beliefs around food and body image come from inside this episode today, and the behaviours that we have normalised that perhaps aren't as healthy as we think that they are. Ultimately, what it means to feel free around food and comfortable in our own body. Elle, welcome to the Menopause Coach Podcast. It's amazing having you as part of our TMC family today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so pleased to be here.
Super good. Okay, I want to jump straight into this one because I know that our listener right now is just like, tell me everything I need to know right now. How did you get involved in doing what you are doing right now? Because we've known each other in the industry for many years at this point.
Yeah.
How did you get started doing what you do?
So I got started, it will be around 7 years ago now, although sometimes it feels like it should be longer. So I came from, very similar to you actually, I came from a sales corporate background. But during that time, I suffered with eating disorders and body dissatisfaction and at times body dysmorphia. And that was for many years. So I started suffering when I was around about the age of 10, and 17 years or so later, finally got to a point where I was recovering and then recovery while working my sales jobs. But then during that process of recovering, I had to really understand disordered eating disorders like inside out. So during that process, I actually trained in eating disorders. And that just equipped me with everything I needed to make recovery successful. And in that process afterwards, I was like, everybody needs to know this, like all these people around me who are struggling and keep returning to the same thing that they think will make them better. Like everyone needs to know what all this entails and how to actually recover. And I just felt so passionate about shouting from the rooftops about it. And I couldn't actually believe that I could live a life free from it as well. Like the recovery was just felt quite astonishing to me. So I qualified and then have been actually qualifying in various different modalities for the last 7 years, while also supporting various people and projects and training on basically food, body and self, really, the relationship to all.
So amazing. I can't believe. So 10 years old for you is when it all started then, your own journey. How did that, can you remember? I mean, I'm not going to say that that's a long time ago because you are still very young, but can you remember back to when it all first started? Did you know that wasn't, and I'm going to say this with the most compassionate tone, but normal to feel that way or to have that relationship with your food and body?
I don't know whether I felt like I wasn't normal. So I don't know whether I felt like the relationship to food was normal or not. I don't think I considered that. I was just so in my own head about myself. I don't know if I did, because I actually was very lucky to grow up in a family where there was no dieting, there was no body shaming. Actually, it was very, the language was very body positivity and neutral. And yeah, food was not stressful in my home. However, because of various other reasons, I still picked up these struggles and I still, ended up having eating disorders. But I just felt like I wasn't normal. I felt like I was weird and strange. And yeah, and it started. And it started with me, probably because of like biologically and genetically who I am, but I always had high levels of comparison from a young age. So I remember being 10-ish and looking around the playground and analysing what all the other kids were wearing and whether I should wear the same clothes as them, or maybe if I change my hair, or thinking that I could change myself to look like other people as well, and sort of going on that mission to do so.
There's a part in all of that that actually is quite normal for kids of that age, because we do have this innate sense of belonging as a human instinct. It's survival. This is like part of our genetical DNA, that if we don't feel like we belong, then it can, in the animal species, mean that we won't survive. So there's a part of that where your human instinct of survival is saying, I need to be the same. I need to look the same. I need to have the same. So how do we determine the difference, right? That's the big thing. One of the things I've picked up on, if I can ask you this, is the difference between the terminologies, because we've talked a bit there about disordered eating, and then you've mentioned the terms eating disorders. Can you maybe explain a bit about what the difference is with those?
Yeah. And what's interesting is that somebody could be suffering equally in the same way, but one has an eating disorder and one is in disordered eating. So really, eating disorders is a diagnosed disorder. It's a diagnosed condition. So you will most likely fit into a category. So you'll fit into a category of anorexia, atypical anorexia, binge eating disorder, bulimia, OSFED, various other ones. You've been to the doctor and you have this diagnosis. And then you have disordered eating, which is vast. I mean, somebody could be at one spectrum of it and find that they eat food and they feel guilt and they feel shame, and it's difficult, but it's not all consuming. You could have somebody at the other end, which if their behaviours changed a bit, would fit into a diagnosed eating disorder. And it's actually all consuming and it's very disruptive to their life and they're in a lot of distress. So majority of my 17 years would have been dipping in and out of disordered eating and the extreme side of it, and eating disorders. Because they are categories. And for example, for binge eating disorder, you have to binge eat X amount of times to fall into that category. Anorexia, your weight has to be a certain BMI. So that's kind of like the main differences with them. But there are such a majority of people who are in this disordered eating category.
Gosh, I think I'm just thinking back to even my own. So I'm more than happy to use, my own experience here as examples with this, just purely because I think that there's got to be some amount of trust and vulnerability when we have these conversations. But thinking back now, childhood for me, I don't ever remember or recall ever having any type of poor relationship around food. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, so there was never the branded items of foods. And I remember always thinking with my best friend Hayley, her mum and dad did have money, so they had all the branded stuff, like the proper Coca-Cola, right? We had Asda's own smart price version of the Coca-Cola, but we never went without. I remember we had a goodie box, as it was called, right? It was the goodie box where all the chocolate would go and the biscuits would go. And we did have to kind of ask permission to be able to access it. So that felt very forbidden. And I think my innate, still got this. It's like that inner little black moon Lilith energy of, you tell me I can't do something, you watch me do it. I'm going to do it right in front of you right now. You tell me not to open the box, I'll open the box. So there's that little rebel inside of us all, isn't there? That if we're told we can't have, then we will not stop thinking about what we cannot have.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's probably one of my early memories of what we are just talking about now, thinking, I wonder if that's where then, for me as a teenager going from primary school, where everything was very controlled, into high school, where we had a lot more flexibility and freedom, and we had what was called the tuck shop. I don't know if you guys had that in England, but in Scotland we call it the tuck shop, where you would take your 50p to £1 and you'd go get your packet of Space Raiders crisps, your Freddo bar, whatever you wanted at break. And I don't want to use the word binge because it probably isn't the same definition, like the proper definition, but I would overconsume on those items because I knew that they weren't freely available outside of that part that I could control.
Yeah.
Does that, right now, if we were sitting inside a one-to-one, does that have anything like resonate with you as the specialist?
Yeah, absolutely. Like our relationship to food is based on so much, and so much of that does come from childhood. And that's not just the language that's used, that's the emotion, that's the energy around food, that's the physical part of it. Like, was it available? Was it not? The scarcity around food. Like, there is so much. And I always say to adults, like, you have to see yourself as a little bit like a child with food. Like, if you say to a child you can't have something, they're going to want it, and they're going to want it more, and it's going to become really exciting. And just because we're adults, we still behave in that same way. If you say to an adult, you're not allowed to eat bread now, when they walk past that bakery and smell that sourdough, it's just going to be like heightened. It's going to be like, oh, I just really want it. So I do think a lot of our behaviors as adults with food is kind of resembling a child-like behavior, because it's so deep rooted. Our relationship with food started when we were in, tummies.
Yeah, exactly. Right. This is it. Is yes. Okay. So intriguing then around, would we be right in saying that everyone at some point in their journey of being a human has had some form of disordered eating tendencies then?
I think this comes down to like a personal opinion, and my personal opinion here is probably yes. I think so. I think at some point everybody will experience a difficult to some level relationship with food. And that's because we must remember that the relationship to food is emotional. And so unless you're somebody that goes about their day with minimal emotion and isn't affected by emotion or sensitive or has the highs and lows and the roller coaster that we all live in this world, then you're going to experience it. For example, like I was with a 60-year-old man the other day, and he received some news about someone in his family, and he said, oh, I just need to eat something. He just needed that comfort, like
Yeah.
that's probably not diet culture related as so much so, but you can see there he just needed a little bit of soothing. So the relationship to food is emotional, and this is why I'm going to go jump all over the place now, but this is why when everybody who wants to heal their relationship with food and step away from that just keeps searching for more control and more rules, I'm like, no, you need to look at the emotion here, or the lack of what you didn't get, or what you did get too much of. It's emotional.
I completely feel this. So again, my master's background in psychology is just like, oh my God, so many light bulb moments, so many moments that are like, yes, it's this, it's linked to that. But actually there's a part in all of this where control in any shape or form, whether that be through food control, whether that be through, very being so organized, always in control, is actually a very telltale sign of some form of dysregulated nervous system. And that can stem from years and years of maybe, we're getting so deep into the psychology now, but maybe years and years of, as a child, you maybe had to grow up quite quickly. You maybe had to mature very quickly because of circumstances or situations. Maybe financially you had to support and help the family. So there's this level of burden that was probably brought into your life before we would deem it to be necessary. And that in itself can bring in that form of control. So I resonate with the example you've just shared with your client there, because that's something that I will turn to. Food is a big comfort for me. And there are certain foods that sit inside my comfort, like bubble, if you like. It's like things like custard, because that's nostalgia to me as a child. Cereals, so Frosties with warm milk in the microwave, it's all warm foods, but they are all inevitably quite fast-acting sugars and carbohydrates that bring that, sense of I am safe, I am comforted, I am okay, I'm loved, I'm cared for. And that bowl of custard does that for me.
We're born into this world needing safety. That's what we're looking for as a baby and a young child. We crave that. That's, essentially one of our minimal needs as a baby. And that doesn't actually go. So as an adult, we are still looking to feel safe. But the word safe, I think, or the feeling of safe has been complicated as we've gone along. And so control is one of those pieces that actually makes somebody feel safe. And that is what I would say probably more so unconsciously searching and looking for. So feeling that you have control of something in your life. And when people's lives are so out of control, maybe they're going through transitions in life that are, that are feeling difficult. It could be that the menopause, or it could be childbirth, it could be moving house, it could be losing a job. There are so many different things. And actually, women that are struggling to conceive, also that can feel very out of control. And so I've actually worked with many women who have started to find more control in their food during those periods in their life. So somewhere along the way, control has made people feel safe. And then also with safety, that can look like many other different things that actually bring in the relationship to food and body as well. So feeling that we're liked can make us feel safe, feeling that we're accepted, that we have a place in this world, that people, want to be around us, can make us feel safe. And what's also happened during the years of diet culture is that people feel like the way they look will create that being liked, being loved, wanting to be around. And then, of course, that creates the dieting and the body image dissatisfaction and all of that stuff.
Wow, so much in there, right?
It's deep.
It is deep. I mean, this isn't anything that any single podcast could ever unpack. I don't even believe that we could ever unpack this fully, because each and everybody's journey is going to be slightly different. It's unique to their journey. But you're right. It's like hitting upon things like the psychology of safety, the belonging as human beings. It's a basic need that if we don't feel like we belong, this was all part of, back to think of like animal culture. It's belonging in packs, it's belonging in herds, it's being part of, accepted too. Otherwise, we are unsafe. And you're right, it's like the destabilization of that can lead us to many different things. And food can be one of them. Food control can be one of them, right? You touched upon things like diet culture there for a second, and thinking about this from the positioning of, we've got a lot more diet culture materials, would I say? I mean, I just think about when I was my girls' age, so they're coming up 16, the only materials that we would, and I'm saying only, but materials we would have available to us was predominantly across like Top of the Pops, when that came on the TV each week, or magazines like Shout, and, all the kind of girly magazines that you would see. But we've got this wider culture now across socials, right? Where it's just constantly there. Do you find that social media has a big role to play in what we're facing here?
Yeah, for sure. I would say it's not necessarily the reason that somebody may be struggling. It's normally many different reasons that someone is having a difficult relationship to food in their body, or disordered eating or eating disorders. But it adds fuel to the fire, and it keeps it alive, and it reminds you. And like you, I remember so clearly, magazines came out every Tuesday. And I would go and spend all of the money that I had earned on my sort of, jobs as a 16 to 18-year-old. And I would buy every single magazine, especially the ones with the skinny people on the front.
Really?
And so they would be read for a couple of days, and then they'd be kind of put away, and then the next lot would come next Tuesday. But now we have that magazine on our phones 24/7. I'm constantly seeing still what I eat in a day's, from extremely thin people, whether they genuinely think they're promoting health or not, everyone's different, but we live with these magazines now all the time. So it's not it's not usually like the catalyst or the starting point, but it's absolutely something that will just keep everyone's insecurities alive.
Wow, we are super complex. So thinking about this from a perspective of then someone that's maybe listening to this right now, they've listened this far into the episode and think, I recognise parts of that in me. I recognize some of the things you're saying in me. The comfort foods, food is comfort food, is all the things like celebration. And, it's also things like I'm feeling quite low in myself and it's a comfort. So if someone recognizes themselves in that, what would you say or suggest is something for them to start with?
Always start with awareness. Now, that sounds really simple, right? And like sometimes I find that recommendation annoying myself to listen to as somebody that has been through disordered eating for many years. Like, have awareness. Yeah, okay, that's quite difficult actually to sit and analyze and think about my relationship to food and my body. But actually, it is going to be the starting point for recovery. It's going to be the starting point for you to make better choices and behavior changes. So having awareness as to how food is playing out for you, how much is it consuming your life. So look at your average day. Like, if you can just commit to doing maybe a thoughts and feelings diary for one day, right, and then build that up to 1 week and 2 weeks, etc., and look at the thoughts that are coming up for you around food, around those sort of moments where body is like you're getting changed in the morning. Maybe it's going to the toilet, having a shower, points where you're more, you're thinking about your body more. There's more of a conscious thought process going on, and start to piece together like is this sort of more of a natural relationship to food and body, which means we all have good days, we all have bad days. We've already spoken on this podcast about how our relationship to food is emotional, or so is our relationship to our body. So in terms of like good days and bad days for the body, when someone's having what we call an I feel fat day, which every single person will experience this, everybody, doesn't matter gender, size, etc., you'll experience this. That is because there is another unmet emotional need going on. There's something else you need, or there's something else going on for you. So when I was having my I feel fat days, I would say to myself, okay, what else outside of my physical body could be happening here? And I'd be like, okay, well, I've had an argument with my partner, or I've got this deadline and I'm way behind. And so you can see it's emotional. So again, like these thoughts and feelings diary will help you step out of your emotional brain, the brain that kind of does things automatically, criticizes yourself without you realizing you're doing it, and into the logical part of your brain. Actually, is this something to do with my body, or is this actually something else? So have that awareness, bring awareness to self, start to get honest with yourself, but come at all of this with self-compassion and kindness. Actually, do I have a bit of a problem? Actually, do I need to stop taking these kind of quick fix solutions that actually aren't working, and really just work on my psychological self?
This is so beautifully, like, in my mind right now, I'm just spinning this up thinking, we can recognize this in ourselves. Like you've said, there's so many things that we can face in life, menopause being one of them. And that is one of the biggest causes of inflammation inside the body itself, just through the endocrine changes that we face. The brain rewires and changes. Yeah, it's like actually everything that we've maybe felt was really stable for a long time. We enter perimenopause and things start to change. You touched upon things like fertility, pregnancy, but also one of the big things that I would say, even from a personal perspective, that I've recognized changed my physical body was grief, or is grief, right? The loss of people, or the loss of, in circumstances, maybe the individual's still alive, but the relationship becomes lost. I would say that even personally for me, that really impacted and affected my relationship to food and to my physical body, not from a positioning of not liking it, but from recognizing that there were days, like you've just said, where maybe that mood was a bit lower and I would hold a lot more inflammation. I could see that I was holding fluid. I could see that I was physically bloated, uncomfortable, churny tummy, all the things that would be indicative of my body is showing signs of stress right now. How much does that have an impact around what we've just discussed?
And I would say one of the main impacts there is the fact that when you feel like that, or you see that in yourself, or you think you see that in yourself, is people go into the self-criticism, the self-loathing, and they go into the fix it rather than what could emotionally be going on for me here.
So rather than sitting in the compassion of right now, I recognize that this happened or this is happening, and of course I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling stress or yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like maybe this inflammation, maybe me looking in the mirror and feeling like my face or my tummy's doing this, instead of okay, I'm gonna eat X, Y, and Z today, and tomorrow I'm gonna get out for that run, which we are just so programmed to do that. If you have had this difficult relationship with food and body, that was always my go-to. It was like, right, I don't like this, I'm off for a run, I'm off to do this.
Right.
Actually
Okay.
sitting and going, okay, my stress levels. I actually did a podcast, an in-person podcast, and it was about, it must be coming up to a year ago now. And I didn't know it at the time, but when I looked back at it, I am so swollen. I'm so inflamed in my face and my face. And actually, I did show a friend and said, "Okay, is this my disordered head playing tricks on me, or is that?" And she said, "Yeah, actually, you really are." And but 4 weeks later, I went into burnout, ended up in hospital.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm still recovering now. It's
Wow.
funny because actually, when we jump off this call, I wanted to ask you a question because, in the last near to year, I've lost so much hair from burnout, from stress. So yeah, I've spent the year. Luckily, I'm recovered with my relationship to food and body. So yes, I'm looking at my food in terms of like, what can I add? What am I deficient in? But I'm not going through any of this like the opposite of wanting to change anything. It's just like, okay, how can I maximize myself? How can I best support myself? And looking at how to reduce stress all round.
I mean, if you get the formula for that, please let me know. Oh, do you know, we joke about it. There's so much that happens. And as women, this was a big conversation. I was out with all my girlfriends last night for dinner. We were actually chatting quite deeply. Yeah, we get into the depths of it after a couple of wines. But we're chatting quite deeply about the impacts of, we're all in our 40s. Some of us are approaching our 50s. And it's very much at what point do we actually not slow down? That would be the wrong terminology to use. But at what point does life get a bit easier? It's like we wait for the I'll be happy when moments. Yeah. And one of the big conversations, because a few of us are very straight down the line, very with love and compassion. Here's where I see this, it's all through you're choosing to sit within this, or you've not chosen yourself for such a long time, which is why you feel this way. But I fully appreciate for a lot of people, the realization of I'm not happy with my life, or I'm not happy with my career, or I'm not happy in my relationship or partnerships can be known to them. But the more challenging part is actually then doing something to change when we're not feeling happy with something, i.e. divorcing the partner we're not happy with, or leaving the career we feel miserable in, because it's change. So maybe segue into this and have a bit of a discussion then around how that in itself, when we think about the impacts of change or the impacts of our own culture, lifestyle, environments, the impact that has around body image, relationship with food.
Everything affects it. And as you just said, I'll do this when I'm happier. And luckily I've just managed to flick onto my exact page 33, if anyone has got the book. Here is, I'll be happier if I was. And there's a list here of like all of those points that you're just waiting. I will heal my relationship with food when life just gets a little bit calmer, right? Because it takes so much.
But the reality
headspace.
is that life will never get calmer unless you choose that pathway. It's always like we're always on a pathway that has at each section a turn left or turn right option, right? And it's like actually when we fully take that radical responsibility, which isn't easy. So please, those listening to this right now, please don't think that, okay, it's easy for you. You can just choose that and change that. Everyone can, but not everyone will. And that might sting a bit. Sometimes holding up the mirror of choice becomes one of the biggest psychological impacts of a human being, because knowing that we always have the choice to choose a different path isn't comfortable.
We do. We all have choices, but also we all need compassion that our lived experience and our resilience levels and all the rest of it, you know, might make that more difficult for some than others. We do all have choices. And even if you can just make one small, tiny choice that day, like actually, I'm going to choose to maybe take the healthier option for me today, which might mean, well, could mean so many different things for everyone.
Even getting one bed more vegetable on your evening meal, right? It's like, I find that when I'm working with a lot of menopausal women, and I am one of them, so I know, I know where we are and what we think. For a lot of us, it's the call to, and I am this person as well, the call to, I'm just going to have the piece of toast because it's easier and I'm busy right now. Rather than, actually, I would have loved to have made myself a nice Greek yogurt granola bowl with berries and a drizzle of honey. Like, that's my go-to for, I just love, or a porridge bowl. But actually, it's the time commitment sometimes to dedicate to, quote unquote, being healthier.
Yeah.
Is there an argument, I suppose, in a way, for health being so subjective? In that, is it healthier sometimes for me to walk in and pick up the sourdough or the white, let's go for white because everybody thinks, oh, white bread is bad. But, the piece of sourdough or the piece of white bread, toast it, stick some butter on it and be so innately happy with the fact that it's comforting.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say it's so subjective because when you said, I'm going to eat the toast, but I'd rather eat the granola yogurt, etc., my first thought was, yeah, but toast for that person might be better than nothing.
Yeah, and it might actually give them a piece of enjoyment that actually that's what I wanted. So when I give myself what I've wanted in moderation at times, right, then I'm honouring me.
Yeah, and fuel over, because some people might fall into the trap of, I want to make yogurt and granola because I believe that's the healthiest option. But I don't have the time, so then I just won't, right? Rather than actually eating the toast. And actually, I just remembered something that popped up a moment ago when we said, I will make these changes when life gets calmer. I'll work on myself. But the thing is with dieting and body image dissatisfaction, which for some people obviously plays out considerably each day, usually that's the thing that's making your life not calm. So you think you're going to calm your life down to focus on the food and body, but actually it's the food and body that's creating this overwhelm, this exhaustion, this brain fog, all of this stress. But you think it's the kids or the work or everything else. And oh my goodness, like it's all of it. It's currently summer holidays. And like yesterday I was like, oh, maybe the thing you think you need to work on once it's done is the first thing you need to do.
When did we ever... Actually, I want to answer my own question now because I was going to say, when did we ever forget the art of self-compassion? But answering that question for myself, being like, I was born in the 80s, I don't think I was ever taught it. I don't think I ever witnessed it growing up. So are we the first generation of parents who are living a life of more self-compassion, learning the road of self-compassion to plug the holes and teach our sons and daughters and, children of the family that actually this is a big tool in your toolbox?
I mean, some people as well would have grown up with literally the opposite: tough love, get up, get on with it. I know, certainly my parents, their parents, etc., would have grown up more so with that. But what I'm really interested in is, this generation is more teaching our kids self-compassion. And I'm intrigued to fast forward 30 years and see how this plays out as a 40-year-old who's grown up very much with self-compassion and looking at energy levels and looking at mental health. And
well, you see it now. Like I look at my girls that are coming up 16 and actually, I mean, oh God, this is like a big deep share, but I was not a very healthy teenager. I played lots of sports. So on the outside, I was in a very, I was in a smaller body, right? I was in quite a lean, small body, but actually on the inside, cheesy peeps, it's like I was underage drinking. All the things that we think that the teenagers now are doing, they're not, right? This is going to blow your mind. I was like, oh my gosh, are my kids for real? They love jumping onto like group chats and doing video calls together and going through a bit of like a shopping haul, or they love recording the get ready with me, or, do my nighttime routine with me. Is that, I mean, I'm not here to say that it's good or bad, but is that any better to being out in the streets where your parents did not know where you were, because there was no such thing as mobile phones to track and Life 360 apps to see where your kids were, right? And you're in the middle of a forest drinking underage.
I mean, I do think they are living a much healthier life at the moment, but then there's also that tipping point, so it is healthier for a 16-year-old not to drink till they're paralytically drunk, right? That is much healthier.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other parts coming in, if we're focusing on the food side, there's lots of teenagers who are extremely conscious about what they're eating. They're out getting their matches and their green smoothies, spending an absolute fortune on things like that, but also, very, very aware of nutrition. Now, we just want to make sure that isn't tipping over into that obsessive orthorexia sort of.
How, as parents, can we recognise where there are types of orthorexia type changes? Now, just for the listener, orthorexia being a condition, or you would probably call it a disordered eating practice, where those individuals will only eat what they deem to be, inverted commas, clean foods, healthy foods. Some will not shop in supermarkets because they need to go to source for each of the items that they will consume. I've worked with many women with orthorexia over time.
Yeah, it's kind of like a subtype of anorexia. So it's feeling like they have control. It's feeling like they aren't putting anything, toxic into their body. That's on the rise. And I wonder with kids as well, now the kids here, are they having enough fun? Like, okay, I'm not saying fun is what we did, but, going out again and roaming the streets till late and, potentially dangerous, but they're on their phones all the time and they're being consumed by this. And I see 16-year-olds, I think, you are so grown up. You're going to be a grown up soon anyway. So just slow down, go back to the park, go and swing on a swing. Like, the kids are growing up so fast now, which I'm not sure is so good.
Yeah, gosh, that's a whole conversation, is it? So I think then, what becomes possible in someone's life with food when they stop allowing it to take up so much mental space? Because we talked a bit about the impacts. We've talked a bit about, we've not mentioned the phrase food noise or anything just yet, but thinking about food as consuming us, thinking about if we don't stop thinking about food. I think about an impact of mine when I was bodybuilding and competing, and had dieted so heavily and hard for 17 weeks, took to stage, and then coming away from stage, the very first ever year that I competed, I had a rebound from not having the foods that I wanted. Yeah, from having to have really, really low calories to get stage ready. It really does impact the brain. It impacts the hormonal chemical balance in the body. And all of a sudden, I didn't have the ability to regulate my satiety levels. So even though after competing, my calories gradually went back up, I was never full. Even after eating meals, I would sit during the meal and think, what else can I have? Because my whole connection to my body had massively changed during that time. The second time I competed, I challenged myself to do it completely differently and to just follow my intuition. I was a very intuitive eater before, and actually allowed myself to have bits of what I wanted built in. Domino's pizza and, other brands that are available, and just parts of the foods that actually, when we were out as a family, we would take the kids to the Krispy Kreme donut place where you could watch them all get made. I wasn't just going to sit there and not get involved. I've got two very impressionable little, girls sitting watching me. So I would have half or a quarter of that donut whilst they're having their own, and they never noticed that I didn't eat the full thing. So I think there's parts of this where I myself went on a journey through extreme levels of dieting, through competing, to come out the other side and recognize that actually I didn't have a rebound the second time. I was able to leave food on my plate and recognize when I was full.
Now, that could be because there wasn't such a scarcity of the food. There wasn't such a restriction physically because you were putting these bits into your, you were eating them. But I think also mentally, if you are mentally saying to yourself, you're mentally restricting this stuff, like, I will not eat this, I can't eat this, this is off plan, then that's going to have a huge effect on you when you then do eat it. Not that you might not allow yourself to, but you might just fall into a place where suddenly you're eating all this food. But I think for you, just saying to yourself, even just having that mental, like, sort of abundance to the level that you could, actually, I will eat the Krispy Kreme, whatever it is, then actually that would have helped reduce the chaotic side when you have restricted physically and mentally so much. The mental side, I work on clients a lot with that. So if they're struggling to actually put these foods into their body, they want to because they want to recover, but they're struggling to. And I'm like, well, let's actually just work on the language and the mental side. Like, I do allow myself, I'm going to have a little bit a day. And then what usually happens is that mind starts to reprogram and the body catches up and then actually allows the food to go in.
So when should someone, and should such a powerful word, because it almost brings that element of it's control, it's expected, it's the rules. Yeah, and it can carry a bit of shame and guilt if we think we've not done it at the right time. But when should someone realistically be looking at seeking professional support? You mentioned that you work with clients around all of this. At what point would you suggest or encourage that actually, if you recognize the following things, that could be an indication of some support being required?
So the first point of call is to always go to your doctor and tell them what is going on for you and seeing what help you can get there. But it in many different ways. So whether you're actually experiencing high levels of anxiety or low mood, depression, it could be linked.
Like around food, though, would that be like you're anxious about meal times or you're anxious about food types?
Yeah, it could be targeted to that, or actually it could just be I'm feeling, very low. And so, and then there's more sort of like behaviors that are playing out. So you are not eating enough food in the day and then you're eating a lot more in the evening, or you're just generally not eating enough. But also like the mental side of it. And we spoke earlier about the thoughts and feelings diary. Like if you're feeling guilt and shame after eating foods, if you're having this urge to compensate and remove the foods, if you're just not, your brain's just, like, what am I eating? When am I eating? And it's creating anxiety, then, go and seek some help or reach out to a counsellor or a therapist or anyone.
Yeah.
And sort of maybe just run this past them, because at this point it's not prevention. In a perfect world, we would actually have all of this being taught in schools where the language is, right for the age group, etc., and it's explained well, and that's great prevention. But unfortunately, with the older generation, actually it is, it's already there, it's already present. But then don't let it escalate to the point, because once you have an eating disorder, or even that, the further side of disordered eating, it's incredibly hard to get out of. It really, really is. So if you wonder at all, is this normal? Is this not? Actually, I don't feel good around this stuff, or I'm criticizing yourself, or you're body shaming yourself all the time, then definitely go and get some help.
Yeah, compassionately, lovingly, and for yourself, right? Okay. I mean, this is a topic that I feel I could speak to you about forever. There may be a part 2 that is required on this.
Yeah.
And of course, I would love to hear from the listeners on any parts of this that maybe you've got questions around. You can reach out to Elle, you can reach out to myself with any of those questions, of course. Elle, before we wrap up this episode, I know that there are many listeners listening to this right now that have taken away a real big, beautiful, compassionate nugget of information that may just go on to allow them to explore further for themselves or a loved one. But where would you suggest, if someone does want to find out more information, they can go? You've obviously talked a bit about your own support, and you are launching your book soon. That is going on to, in fact, today, right? It's available from today.
Yes, the 27th, Thursday, the 27th of August. This is it here, if you can see it. Food Freedom, How to Find Peace from Food Anxiety and Reclaim Your Body Confidence. So it is literally full to the brim of tools for yourself to use daily on yourself that you can take action now. And also just all the information around what, why, how we have these relationships to food and body and self.
So maybe starting there would be the first rung on the ladder. Get some more information. If this has sparked something in you that you think, actually, I'm intrigued by this, I want to know more, then you can click on the show notes and you will find the link to Elle's book available from today. Where can the listeners find you if they want to come and speak with you direct?
So I'm on Instagram and TikTok. It's at I am Elle Mace. Lots and lots of daily sort of tips, awareness, reminders, etc. on there. And then I have an email and our website. So go to the website, find the email on there, www.ellmace.com.
Thank you so, so much. This is a topic, I believe, that as we start to become more aware, speak openly about it, we don't have to be experts to openly have conversations around how we feel in our own bodies. We are all experts of our own body. So please, if you are recognizing this in anyone that you love and you have any concerns, if you're unsure how to move that forward, then please reach out and ask for some support with that guidance. We have work to do, right? For women and empowerment and all the things, self-compassion and love. But it starts with just taking one step. And sometimes that one step can be just awareness of how you feel and what you're recognizing in your physical and emotional self. Elle, before we leave, I would love to ask you the question of what your biggest tool or most go-to tool would be for someone who has listened to this episode and thought, I feel like I need to explore this further. What would you recommend they do?
So my biggest tool, I think, what I'm seeing so much is people feeling out of control with food. And behind that is usually a level of restriction, mental or physical. So my go-to tool, which is in the book, is to start to introduce foods back into your lives or start to create that balance. Now that feels really, really scary. So it would be looking at what you have, let's say you binge or you overeat on chocolate, but then you don't have chocolate in the house, so you restrict it. It's about getting it in a mindful, controlled way, and starting to allow yourself to have a bit each day. And then slowly the body starts to become calmer around food. But most importantly, you start to build trust of yourself. Trust that you can keep foods in the house and be able to eat them. Trust is huge. Like throughout the book, it's all about how we don't trust ourselves with so much and how to build that. And then what I will say is, when you go on this journey of recovery and food freedom and etc., is you'll be amazed as to the transformation that you will have. What I have found in myself, my own journey has completely lived this out, and I see it in so many other people, is every aspect of your life can change. You stop being a people pleaser. You start putting boundaries in place. You may lose some people in your life, usually for the better. I came out of a 10-year relationship when I went through my journey of recovery. And so much changes. My life is so different. I am so different. So I would say kind of like strap in, because you can have some huge, massive changes, but it's all for the better. It's all stuff that needs to happen. It's just scary to do so.
A catalyst of change. Thank you so, so much for your life currency, your knowledge, and your compassionate way of having this conversation. I know that it will have resonated with many that listen to this today. As always, if you have enjoyed this episode, then please do leave us a review. Get in touch, let Elle, myself know how you've enjoyed it. Any questions you've got, we are here. And stay beautifully, compassionately connected to yourself. And we will see you next week on a brand new episode. As always, everything that we've covered today is not meant to replace any medical guidance or intervention and support. So please do make sure that if you do need support, you reach out to the relevant professionals for that. Thank you, Elle. It has been a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you.